So, good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Tony Jimenez, and I've been working in the integrative oncology field for nearly 30 years. Started out with undergrad training in Dallas, Texas, where I got a Bachelor of Science in Biology and Biochemistry. And then I went to medical school in Mexico for, divine reasons. I was going to go to Oxford, where I got accepted, but my parents couldn't afford paying for that school, so I looked at the next best option, and that was in Guadalajara, Mexico, one of the largest cities in Mexico. And so they had three different sections: the students that were coming from the US and Puerto Rico, the ones from other Latin American countries, and then the Japanese. And so we were in the US group. Classes were done in English, and English professors, textbooks, and so forth. So it was a real good training. But in medical school, I didn't learn any of what I'm going to show you today. And then my dad developed prostate cancer. He was in Houston, Texas. And if you live in Houston, you go to MD Anderson, right? And he had one conventional therapy. He called me and he said, "Son, I can't do this anymore." And so that was actually my own first patient. I was already working in a cancer hospital in Tijuana, Mexico. And so now we have two clinics in Mexico, one in Tijuana, south of San Diego, and the other one in Cancun, Mexico. And then we have another treatment center in Colombia, South America, and two in Asia, one in the Philippines and one in Thailand. So the topic for today is stopping the cancer runaway train by preventing metastasis. As we know, about 90% of all patients with cancer succumb or die because of the metastasis. No one dies from a breast cancer or from a prostate cancer or a colon cancer. They die from the metastasis, from it going to the liver, to the brain, to the bone, to the lungs. So metastasis accounts for 90% of all cancer death. Unfortunately, in research, 80% of the funds are spent in studying the primary tumor, the breast cancer, the colon cancer. And only 20% is spent in studying the metastasis. And so this is a dichotomy that hopefully will change in the next years or decade, where all the funding that is given to the American Cancer Society and all these foundations, that they really spend it in the point of that is most important in cancer patients is stopping the metastasis. And central to the metastatic activity are the so-called circulating tumor cells, also can be called cancer stem cells. Okay, so this is the topic of today is these so-called circulating tumor cells or cancer stem cells. When someone is found to have a tumor, let's say in the prostate, in the breast, in the colon, already in 1 cubic centimeter of a tumor, that's a tumor or a lymph node that measures 1 by 1 by 1. That's 1 cubic centimeter. There's 1 billion cancer cells in that tumor or that lymph node. If a tumor measures 2 by 2 by 1, that's 4 billion cancer cells in that tumor. So when someone has a mammography or a CAT scan or MRI, and they said, "Oh, we just diagnosed you with, this tumor," this is a process. There's already a high risk of having circulating tumor cells or cancer stem cells because of the vast number of cells already in that tumor that was found. Fortunately, the fact is that about 1 million of these cells are released into the circulation every day. So someone who has had a diagnosis of cancer, they're releasing, that main tumor is releasing about 1 million cancer cells or circulating cells into the bloodstream. Fortunately, as you see in the top right there, most of these circulating tumor cells are killed or eliminated by your immune system. Therefore, having an optimal immune system is of primary importance. An immune system, takes care of us from a cold to cancer and everything in between. So it's very important to have an optimal immune system. However, about 0.01% of these million cells survive, and they're not killed by the immune system. Most of them lie dormant, so they could be circulating in the cancer, in the bloodstream for years, decades, or even months until they become active. So I'm sure a lot of you here, most of you, have someone that has had cancer in your life, maybe a friend, is that right? Someone, you know someone with cancer, and possibly they had treatment, whatever that was, conventional or integrative treatment, and then they were said to be in remission. Have you, right? You heard someone, they were in remission, and then they're watchful waiting. And they're going to get a CT scan, MRI, or PET scan every 6 months or every year to wait. What are they waiting for? They're waiting for a tumor to show up again, right? And it will because of these circulating tumor cells. Because interestingly enough, and this is not Dr. Tony saying this is in the peer-reviewed literature, published, documented in Medline, that chemotherapy and radiation do not kill these circulating tumor cells. On the contrary, it makes them more active and more aggressive and more resistant. That's why someone who has had chemotherapy or radiation and they had an initial good report, if there's a so-called recurrence or relapse, and now a tumor is found again, and they go to a second round of a different chemotherapy or sometimes the same chemotherapy, it's not going to have the same benefits because the initial chemotherapy regimen made these circulating tumor cells more resistant and active. Is this making sense?
What are those ratios, Tony?
Sorry?
What are those ratios when you talk about taking chemotherapy,
right,
as opposed to reoccurrence? What are the ratios of reoccurrence in the literature?
Well, according to a multi-center study that was done based out of Australia in the early 2000s, chemotherapy and radiation only had a 2.5 to 5% 5-year survival. So it's the rate of recurrence is very high. And that was a multi-center study done in several countries, quite significant. And this is when you go to an oncologist and you get the chemo and the radiation, you know, they don't tell you this. The reason is because an oncologist, a conventional oncologist, doesn't have a solution for this. Because chemo doesn't kill circulating tumor cells and radiation doesn't either. And if you're thinking about the new immunotherapies like the checkpoint inhibitors, PD-L1, PD-1, like Keytruda, Opdivo, they're in diapers still for targeted immunotherapy, and they're not killing these cancer stem cells either. So this is a real, and the publication is there. This was in Nature Biotechnology that it was published. So I want you to understand the metastatic process. On the right in blue is the primary tumor, wherever you could imagine. And in this primary tumor, as you now know, there are two types of cells. There are non-cancer stem cells, and there are the cancer stem cells. The non-cancer stem cells make up about 99% of all the cells in the primary tumor. These guys can and are killed by chemo and radiation. The 99%, the cancer, non-cancer stem cells. So this is why when someone has these therapies, the oncologist is very happy, the patient's very happy, everybody is happy, because now the tumor is shrunk a lot, or maybe it's not visible anymore. But there's this 1% of cancer stem cells that, as I said, are resistant to chemo and radiation. And there are so few in number that the PET scan, CAT scan, MRI, ultrasound cannot pick these up. Okay? So for these cells to leave the primary site, they have to go from the primary tumor through the matrix, also called the ground regulating system, or the extracellular matrix is that line area, that wine line area. So for them to leave the primary tumor and go into the blood vessel, they have to transition from epithelial cancer stem cells. They transition to what's called mesenchymal cancer stem cells. So this transition is happening, and now these cells invade the blood vessel, as you see here. They enter the blood vessel through the cell membrane, and now they're called circulating tumor cells. Okay? They're called circulating tumor cells when they are obviously in the circulation. And so what happens next is they form like an embolus, or it's called a tumor arrest, and now they're fix themselves to the vascular wall, and now they could exit and metastasize. Oops, sorry. And that is called micrometastasis or angiogenesis, the increased blood supply. So one of the things we do at our treatment centers when someone has a tumor is we look for the blood flow, the angiogenesis. Increased blood flow, increased cancer activity, and greater potential of the metastatic activity. A tumor cannot grow beyond 2 millimeters in size without having increased blood supply. It needs doors and windows to get more nutrients and to eliminate waste, because cancer cells are like bullies. They need a lot of nutrients, right? And so they need increased, enhanced blood supply. That's called angiogenesis. So this is the mechanism of metastasis. And this is, we talked about appreciating, inspiring, and also, going to that place of information and love. And I'm serving you today by giving you information that the conventional world kind of dispels or doesn't talk about, because they don't have a solution to this yet. Nor can they detect, because a blood test cannot detect these circulating tumor cells. And so I will show you what we can do. There's a technology from Europe that came out about a year ago. It was developed at Paderborn University in Germany. That's called photodynamic infrared spectroscopy. What that means is that we're using light, photo, infrared light, and we're using a device called a spectroscope to detect these circulating tumor cells. And the way this works is that we have, I'll get to that in a moment, but on the right, you see the photodynamic infrared spectroscopy that detects both the mesenchymal form of cancer stem cells and also the epithelial form. Remember that transition that we talked about from epithelial to mesenchymal. So this technology detects both of those cells, okay? It also analyzes your complete total blood volume. We have about 5 to 6 liters of blood in our body, and so we're able to analyze your complete blood volume. And it can detect up to one single circulating tumor cell that can, at some point, potentially migrate to the lung, to the bone, to the liver, to the brain, right? And this photodynamic infrared spectroscopy not only screens and tests for circulating tumor cells, but then we could treat and we could destroy those circulating tumor cells. On the left here, you will see that there are some labs. One in the States is called Cell Search. In Germany is called MainTrack, and they have one in Greece called RGCC. These are laboratory tests that look for circulating tumor cells. And you will see the limitations with the lab test. They can only detect the epithelial variant of the circulating tumor cells. They cannot find the mesenchymal ones. And also, you send like 2 test tubes of blood, you ship it to Germany or to Greece, so they're only looking in a very small amount of blood as opposed to your total blood volume. And it is only a screening device, it doesn't treat. So we prefer, obviously, to do the photodynamic infrared spectroscopy. And it's relatively simple but complicated technology. You have a spectroscope, and then you have two lasers. On the bottom, we have an 810 nanometer laser that we put intravenously. And on top, it's an 830 externally applied laser. So these are the tools that we need to do this technology. And so the way it works is we give what's called a photosensitizer. This is a natural substance that adheres itself to circulating tumor cells. So we give this substance intravenously. We wait about 45 minutes, and then we start the screening. Because, as you see, the blue are the circulating tumor cells. The green now is this substance called indocyanine green that it latches on to the circulating tumor cells. And this is what we will be able to detect and destroy with the spectroscopy test. So this is a unique test that is available in Europe at 2 or 3 facilities, a couple facilities in Asia, and we were blessed to have it in both of our Cancun clinic and our Tijuana clinic. So one of the questions is, well, this is a little bit more of the technology and how it's done. We have a control. Once we give the substance intravenously, we check for 3 peaks. Once we see these 3 peaks in the spectroscope, one is called the laser excitation peak at 785 nanometers. The second one is called the fluorescent peak, and the third one is called the phosphorescence peak. Once we see those 3 peaks, we know that we have given you enough indocyanine green, and we're ready to run the test. Okay, so that's the control of for an adequate test, and it's that simple. We put an intravenous catheter with that infrared laser that I mentioned. We connect all the device to the spectroscope, and then we detect the circulating tumor cells. If we find any, we can kill or destroy those circulating tumor cells. It's minimally invasive, it's non-painful, there's no side effects, and tolerated very well. So who can have this photodynamic test? Anyone in the room, because in the U.S., 1 of every 2 men will be diagnosed with cancer sometime in their lifetime, and 1 of every 3 females will be diagnosed with cancer. If any of you or you know someone that has a history of cancer in the family, or you yourself, have not been doing the healthy lifestyle, and cancer is in your mind because your neighbor had it, and you saw someone on TV. Olivia Newton-John, by the way, is our patient, and I can say this because she just came out with her book. So we have a lot of stars that come to us, but her I can say because she just published a book, and she allowed me to mention her name. But this is technology that is far beyond anything that exists now. Yes, speak up.
How does it actually kill it?
Yes, with the infrared laser.
Light?
The light kills it because the ICG, that's a good question, the indocyanine green, the ICG that we gave intravenously that latches onto the circulating tumor cells. Sorry?
What bond?
It bonds. Then with the laser, it's called laser excitation. It's called photobiomodulation therapy. So that excitation of the specific wavelength of laser bonding to that ICG, we have the production and release of reactive oxygen species, ROS, which are free radicals. So it kills those circulating tumor cells by that mechanism.
It denies it oxygen?
Yes. In the presence, we give hyperbaric oxygen therapy before this. We can use ozone as well. And so yes, sir.
There's many different kinds of cancer. So how is it that this ICG attaches itself to all the bad circulating cells?
Yes.
It doesn't attach itself to any of the good cells.
That's correct. That's very correct. The ICG, if it would attach to a normal cell, it's not going to be excited, right? The excitation by the laser. When we treat cancer, one of the things we have to think about is that old paradigm. Dr. Tony, I have a rare angiosarcoma, or I have a neuroendocrine carcinoma of the pancreas. Can you treat that? We're not treating a cancer type. We're treating the mechanisms of cancer, and I will describe that in a moment. All the mechanisms of cancer that are inherent to all cancer types. With chemo, you are treating a specific cancer because it's a chemical that is binding to a particular receptor site, right? And that's why oftentimes the short-lived results and the toxicity of these treatments.
So is it permanent once you kill them? Is it permanent?
Well, it depends the entire clinical situation. Those cells will not live again. They won't relive per se, but it depends. If the patient has, like, for example, let me just show you this. Let me finish and I'll answer that question. So for early recognition, it's important to do this test. It's also confirmatory if someone has had chemo, radiation, and doing watchful waiting and remission now. Let's see if there's these circulating tumor cells, because that will increase your risk of developing a relapse or reoccurrence sometime in the future. And then for therapy, as you know, because we're able to kill these circulating tumor cells. So we can assess how you're doing and your risk of developing reoccurring cancer. So here's a situation. This patient, that's not my microphone. This patient, 33 years old, she was diagnosed with stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma of the right breast. By the way, the right breast is the male side, the left breast is the female side. So from an emotional, psychological perspective, anyone that has right breast cancer, we have to look at male traumas and male conflicts. Left side is more the mother-child, the niche, the nest. So we look for conflicts of that type on the left side. So this patient came to us at May 2018. Angela is her name. And we gave her a number of our treatments that you see there: sound, photodynamic therapy, a number of non-toxic immunotherapies, hyperthermia, ozone, sauna, everything you see there. And she still had that tumor in that right breast. Before this, she had chemotherapy, the conventional TCHP type chemotherapy, and Herceptin, which is a hormone blocker, and Perjeta, which is an immunotherapy. Although the tumor shrank, as you see there, it didn't disappear, and that's when she came to us. And Angela was a cheerleader for the Tennessee Titans professional football team. Beautiful lady, always exercised, ate healthy, had a good life. And so she did our therapy, and we did not have the PDIS at that time. And she came back in September of 2018, and that's when we did the screening, and we did not detect any circulating tumor cells. So Angela still, to this day, has a little tumor on her breast, on her right breast, but that's it. Everything else is clear. Maybe she'll have this tumor for 50 more years, right? It might be necrotic. It's obviously not active, and she doesn't have circulating tumor cells. So this gives her such confidence, such empowerment. It removes the fear, right? It helps her be inspired to do her therapies and so forth. And by the way, Angela is now pregnant. She'll have her baby, I think, in October of this year, which the oncologist tells her you cannot get pregnant because you had all the chemotherapy, right? And so she's pregnant now because of all the combinations of therapies we use. We reestablished, repaired, regenerated a lot of cells, tissues, and organs in her body. Yes?
So could her body have encapsulated those cancer cells?
Her body could have encapsulated the tumor, exactly. So you see, conventional wisdom is we have to remove the tumor. We have to remove the tumor. It's all about the tumor. It's not about the person. As I said yesterday in my little workshop, we're treating the patient or the person with the cancer. We're not treating the cancer in the person, because then we forget about the person. And so now here, we have to make sure we enhance quality of life, longevity, survival, And as you'll see here, to answer your question, sir, you'll see that this is not tumor type specific. This is based on the mechanisms of disease. That's Angela there. And so why do cancer cells metastasize? Because they're survival cells, they're living cells, they are capable, as you see, of spreading, they are autonomous, they're sugar-free cancer. Well, in some ways it does if it's processed sugar, as we described yesterday, but the cancer cells, you see, some patients I ask, did you ask your oncologist, hey doc, why did I have cancer? I eat well, I exercise, I have a loving husband or wife, my life is pretty good. Why this? And the doctor will ask you, is there cancer in your family? Your sister, your brother, your father, your uncle, your mother? And if you say yes, what does the oncologist say? That's why you got it. But if you say no, then the oncologist just shrugs his shoulder. Some oncologists tell patients it's bad luck, or what did you do to deserve this? Or, it's in your cards, something like that. I've heard patients tell me that. But no, cancer is an intelligent process. Cancer is not a haphazard situation in the body. It's an intelligent, there's a reason for why cancer developed. And that reason is a bit complex for me to talk all about it here, but we'll talk about the 10 hallmarks of cancer. This is something important at the end, if any of you want to take a picture at the end, because there's many parts to this. So this was published originally in 2000, and then in 2002 in the peer-reviewed journal called Cells, C-E-L-L. So one of the hallmarks of cancer is that cancer cells bypass growth suppressor signals, your own body's signal to stop this growth of this cancer. Cancer cells are able to bypass that signal. The second characteristic is that cancer cells are able to release their own growth signals in addition to suppressing the body's signals. Thirdly, cancer cells demonstrate social intelligence. They communicate with each other. They share information. This is why a conference like this is so important for us to realize that information is so important at the cellular level. And what happens in our thoughts and in our mind and our emotions and our soul and our spirit will ultimately or can ultimately manifest on a physical level. And the challenge with conventional medicine is that they're only addressing the physical aspect of the human being. They're not looking at the emotional, spiritual, soul, spirit, mind, emotions. And when we do this, when we integrate these two ways of achieving health and longevity, great things happen. So the fourth signal is, hallmark is that cancer cells solve problems of existence. They mutate, they learn how to survive. They alter its own genes. It's found that if someone has metastasis to the liver or the lung, and they have multiple metastases, one tumor can have up to 100 genetic mutations, and the tumor next to it in the same organ could have a different 100 genetic mutations. So cancer cells are altering this to make it very difficult for the immune system to target these. And this is why the conventional immunotherapies are short-lived, because at most it's targeting 2, 3, 4, 5 different genetic mutations. And so there's hundreds of them in these cancer cells. Then we see that cancer cells are able to cloak or shield themselves to get nutrients and to be able to eliminate waste. Because think of a cancer cell like a bully. And so they need a lot of nutrition, and then they need to eliminate the waste. So cancer cells are very vascular cells, tumors, very vascular tumors. And the ninth hallmark is that cancer cells resist apoptosis. And you heard of apoptosis, right? It's programmed cell death. Like a red blood cell will live 120 days and it will die. All cells in our body are dying and new cells are forming every second of every day. But cancer cells don't die by themselves. They don't have this feature. So they resist apoptosis. And the 10th hallmark of cancer is the infamous inflammation. Cancer, all cancers by nature are an inflammatory disease. Cancer is a cold disease, it's an inflammatory disease, and it's an acidic disease. So inflammatory, cold, C-O-L-D. That means if you take your body temperature in the morning, you will see if there's cancer, that your body temperature is a bit lower than normal. Normal typically being 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius. So some of our cancer patients have as low as like 95.5 Fahrenheit. I mean, okay, so these are the 10 hallmarks of cancer, importance of orange bar. So quite significant. This week, then I go to Reno, and my goal now is to spread the information so that we can have better results in cancer and change the face of cancer. I worked in the trenches for many years. Now I'm blessed that I have doctors in all of our clinics that I can trust, that we communicate on an ongoing basis, and we're doing the daily work. And now I'm doing more research, development, education, writing books, and so forth. So that's where I am now in my life. And so at Hope for Cancer, we do quite a number of therapies. But the main thing with our therapies is, as I said earlier, not to always just focus on the tumor, but focus on the reasons why someone developed cancer. And that's called the terrain. You've heard of the terrain. We have the external terrain and we have the internal terrain. And so if we're able to successfully treat the person with the cancer, not the cancer in the patient, working on the terrain, we're going to have excellent results. And for this, we have to look at lifestyles, we have to look at toxins and infections that we're exposed to, pollution, heavy metals, all the stuff that there's a lot of booth here to try to protect us from EMFs and 5G and so much stuff. All this is part of the equation, is part of the puzzle in decreasing your risk of cancer and also recovering from cancer if you were diagnosed with cancer. Genetics is a small part of this, as we know. We have to get back to regulation or balance. It's called homeostasis in medicine. And we have to, of course, look at the soul and the spirit level of health. And a lot of these illustrations are in my upcoming book that I'll share with you in a moment, that will be released in about 2 weeks. You could get a lot more information. This is the 7 key principles of cancer therapy that I'll describe next, that was published in a peer-reviewed journal out of UCLA in 2012, where we published the 7 key principles. As I said yesterday in the workshop, if you forget anything you've learned this weekend about cancer, please remember these 7 key principles. Because if you are up to working on these 7 key principles every day in your life, you will fare better, you will have more longevity, and they are non-toxic cancer therapies for any of you that have cancer. For all of us, will be the next 6 of the 7 key principles. Modulating our immune system, I talked about that earlier, why that's important. Full spectrum nutrition. Detoxification, and starts with detoxing our negative thoughts and emotions, as well as, the gut, the colon, the gallbladder, the liver, our skin brushing, oil pulling, all these things are important. Oxygenation, we're a body that's dynamic. We have to move. 8 hours sitting is equivalent to smoking about 1 pack of cigarettes. So we're organisms being that need to be in motion to be healthy. Restoring our microbiome, the gut flora, very important. 75% of our immune system is in our gut. So we have to work on the gut-brain connection and the microbiome. The spiritual and emotional, this group is excellent at this. You're at a different level than most of the people I speak with, or 2. So those are the 7 key principles. And the upcoming book is called Hope for Cancer, 7 principles to remove fear and empower your healing journey. Why did I say 7 principles to remove fear? Because fear is the name of the game from an emotional perspective. Someone's diagnosed with cancer, I met you, Kim, and you know, the fear is there because the oncologist says, well, if you don't do this and you don't do that, you're gonna die. Or you have 6 to 12 months to live, or you know, your 5-year survival chances are pretty grim. Whatever they say, they're putting this fear, and then patients are living to die, they're not living to live. We have to live, not live to die. We had a high-end Hare Krishna, B.T. Swami Krishnapada, that came to us, and he was writing a book, Death Before Dying, and he ended up dying. But not from the cancer, he died of something else. He had advanced melanoma, and we helped him with that, but he was preparing himself to die. So we have to live to live. So there's a lot of therapies, and I'm sorry that I'm talking really fast. There's a lot of information. I only have like 45 minutes. So there's, this is the mechanism, ma'am, that you asked for with this photo and sonodynamic therapy. You see at the top, it kills cancer cells by releasing reactive oxygen species. And this is what sound and light can do and do. It modulates the immune system, both the innate, the quick-acting immune system, and the long-acting immune system. It modulates that. It disrupts the blood supply to the tumor, and also it kills pathogens. You know that viruses, parasites, bacteria, stealth pathogens, mycoplasma, Lyme, Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, all these things can often be part of that cancer process. So we have to look at all these things. And we use a lot of light. On the left, you see a person with the tumor in the neck. We're putting the laser lights directly into the tumor. In the middle, that's a breast cancer. You can't see it very well there, but we're using a laser, which is a 4-watt high-power laser, after giving the sensitizer to kill that breast tumor. And on the right, we're giving the laser therapy intravenously, because the photons of light will travel through the bloodstream and go everywhere in your body, even cross the blood-brain barrier. We're getting some really good results with primary brain tumors and metastatic brain tumors as well. So a lot of the work we do is energy medicine. In 1954, Dr. Gerber wrote a book, Vibrational Medicine, and he was considered, you know, a quack. Now we know that he was ahead of his time. And at Hope for Cancer, we do a lot of energy medicine with sound, with light, with heat, hyperthermia, saunas, different types of treatment. Here on the left is the patient with a bladder cancer, and this is our radiologist. We're putting in a catheter through the penis, of course, right into the bladder and targeting that tumor directly. 46% reduction in that tumor with one treatment. The person in the middle, he has the cancer of the penis, external penile cancer, and also we did a photosensitizer called 5-ALA, and then we used the red light. And the person on the right, he has a rectal tumor that we can access, obviously, to the rectum, guided by the ultrasound, and we could direct the treatment right into the tumor. This is the local treatment, but we also have to do the systemic treatment that encompasses the 7 key principles. Okay? Hyperthermia, increasing heat. Cancer cells don't like heat, so this is one of the main therapies. There's a lot of references and information on this. A bit too much to go over now, but hyperthermia, in the International Journal of Hyperthermia published in 2014, they saw the link between using hyperthermia as a treatment and upregulating the immune system. So a lot of correlation here with the therapies that we do, how they work in synchrony with each other. Immune modulation, upregulating the immune system, so important. And we use specific therapies to target the macrophages. The macrophages are like policemen that are in the police station waiting for a call. And the call is developing cancer cells or viruses. So macrophages are in every tissue of your body. However, they're in the police station. When they're called, then they go and do what they're supposed to, destroy cancer cells and destroy viruses. However, cancer cells suppress macrophage activity. That's one of the mechanisms. And with these treatments that we call SUNY bioimmunotherapy, we're able to wake these macrophages up. And this is called macrophage activation factor. And we're able to build up the macrophages so they could get out of the cells and kill these cancer cells and viruses if there's any in the body. So these immunotherapies are safe, effective, non-toxic, because we're working with the God-given immune system. We're not putting any, foreign substances into the body that are toxic. This is just more of an immune therapies that we use. These are derived from shark, developed in San Diego together with a scientist in Guadalajara, Mexico. And the spleen of the shark is very rich in immune cells. And remember, sharks cannot get cancer. If they did these works back in the early 80s, where they put many fish in a huge tank and they put carcinogenic substances in the water. The only fish that didn't develop cancer was the shark. So then they started researching why. And in the dorsal fin of the shark, there are some immune protectors. And now they found others in the spleen. So this product on the right there called T-cell modulation therapy is from the spleen of the shark. And it's a spray that you do 6 sprays in the mouth once a day. Amazing results. The one in the middle called Activa IC3 is nanotechnology using some of these shark cells as well. Very micronized cells, nanotechnology. So we're really upregulating the immune system with these therapies. And there's a lot of data on all this, research. This is not anecdotal. We're able, with one of these products, to elongate the telomeres. Any of you heard about telomeres, right? The ends of the chromosomes. Cancer patients have shortened telomeres. So one of the products we use, it's called Salgina, elongates those telomeres. And that's the combination of thymus, as you see on the left there in green, thymus, RNA thymus, and peptides called epithelone. And that's right, okay. And that's what regulates the elongation of the telomeres. So we could even do that for longevity and prevention. The Garden Food Plan, I don't have time, I have 5 minutes, but the Garden Food Plan is my recommendation after almost 30 years of experiencing thousands and thousands of patients around the world. I'm not a keto guy. I'm not a strictly vegetarian guy. I'm a guy that is going to give you recommendations on a garden-type food plan. And we're going to eliminate cancer triggers, we're going to eliminate cancer promoters, immune destructors, and treatment antagonists, and give you a nutrition plan that is healthy, that is protective, and this is what I follow. And so I'm not saying one diet is good for everyone, because it's not. We have to figure that out on an individual basis. And at Hope for Cancer, we do this well because we recognize that one size does not fit all. We have an array of herbals that we give intravenously. Even boswellia, frankincense, we could give intravenously. Green tea extract kills those circulating tumor cells. Hypericin, which is St. John's wort. A lot of our cancer patients are depressed, they have anxiety, so we could help them. Wormwood, artesunate, ginger, all these herbs we could give intravenously, and we do. Detoxification, important, cleaning your mouth, dental toxin, jewel canals, metal fillings, cavitations, periodontal disease, and the list goes on. Oxygenation, we talked about, exercising, cold plasma ozone, restoring the microbiome. All this is in my book, by the way. I'm going through this very fast. The emotional and spiritual, what's under the water? We have to bring to the surface what's hidden. Buried feelings never die. We have to get these to the surface and let go of these traumas, conflicts, and unhealthy, toxic emotions, right? And we have case studies, many of them. These are just advanced cancer patients. On the left, you see the PET scan of October 2018. On the right, you see January 2019. And this patient had aggressive left breast invasive cancer, and this is her story. Everything black, with the exception of the bladder, which is the bottom part of the black, that's normal. But you see the difference. You don't have to be an oncologist or radiologist to see the difference in those PET scans. It could happen this quickly. We're healing at maybe a 5D level, a quantum level, right? We're healing at a quantum level. Here's another patient, different clear PET scan. And this is what can happen. This patient, 75% reduction in the primary tumor of the lung. And she went viral. She posted her stuff on Facebook, and now it's all over the place. And, you know, the Sun, the Daily Mail, they gave her 6 to 24 months to live. Now the bone metastases have disappeared, the liver metastases have disappeared, and that primary lung tumor shrunk by 75%, as you saw in this image, right, from the top to the bottom on the right side. Her name is Kate. And that's her story. But she has stepped up to the plate. She has grabbed the bull by the horns. She has been compliant. She has also taken other things. She's taking CBD. She's doing meditation. She's going to the ocean and getting, you know, good ions. It's not only about the physical therapies. It's about the whole package, right? The love, eliminating toxic relationships from your life. Love, right? Love. And so in conclusion, the treatment of metastatic cancer is best approached through an integrative form, not a selective form of chemo, radiation, or surgery. We have tissue, but the terrain, the evidence demonstrating less. Thank you for listening, and I wish you well.